Hi folks, I am here to talk about two very popular topics for politics and the world today. They are trade and immigration. And a lot of people don't know that you can actually use the Ricardo model, a very simple model for the gains of trade and comparative advantage, to evaluate and compare scenarios of both trade and immigration, and, well, no trade, also known as autarky. So, I've set up I'm going to evaluate briefly three scenarios, one with no free trade, one with free trade, and then one more with free trade and immigration. So I've set up my problem here. Let's assume that there are 10 workers in both the United States and Mexico, and that the United States has an absolute advantage in producing both beer and tequila. So what that means is that evaluated on its own, the United States has greater productive capacities in both beer and tequila than Mexico does. Right? So we are assuming that one worker can produce one bottle of beer in the United States as well as one bottle of tequila. Whereas you need 5 workers to produce one bottle of beer in Mexico, and you need 2.5 workers to produce a bottle of tequila in Mexico. It's always important to be upfront about your assumptions. Your assumptions are important in any economic model because these are the things that will or will not hold or break the model in real life. So obviously these are things that will not hold in real life. It's always important to evaluate the extent to which our assumptions are broken in real life and what that means for our model. So keep that in mind. This is a very simple model and is not perfectly generalizable to the real world. However, it is instructive for how we should think and approach these issues. Okay, so to evaluate this, we're first going to draw our production possibility frontiers for both the United States and Mexico. So let's do that. All right, so with the amount of workers in Mexico and their production capacities, it looks like Mexico can produce 4 bottles of tequila. Let me label my axes. And beer. Mexico can produce 4 bottles of tequila, so that's right here, and they can produce 2 bottles of beer. Right? Alright, because we don't have any marginal returns, diminishing marginal returns in our model, this is just going to be a straight line. Likewise, the United States with 10 workers and 1 worker per bottle for each. Produce 10 of each. So there, straight line, which is hard. Okay, so one of the interesting things about the slopes of these two, let me label, US, Mexico. Right. The slope of these two lines also give us the exchange rates. Right? So in Mexico, because you have a slope that is -2, right, and in the United States you have a slope of -1, that means you can trade 2 bottles of tequila for 1 bottle of beer. In the United States, you can trade 1 bottle of tequila for 1 bottle of beer. So right off the bat, you can tell that there will be gains from trade, right? So if you're producing tequila in Mexico, you can sell your tequila for twice as much beer in the United States than you can in Mexico. Likewise, if you're producing beer in the United States, you can sell your beer for twice as much tequila in Mexico than you can here in the United States. So where those exchange rates, those international exchange rates settle out will determine who gets what, but both countries will be better off in trade, right? But let's prove that. And to do that, let's first draw what the production possibility frontier will be for the world if free trade were allowed. Okay, to do that, let's imagine a situation where you're king for the day and you really like tequila, and you have absolute control over your economy and the global economy. So you set both economies to only produce tequila. So that's just a simple addition. 4 in Mexico plus 10 in the United States equals 14. Okay, so we know that. Label this Okay, and we also know that, let's say, if you're a king and you really like beer, as I do, then you would move capacity, all of your production to beer, and you would produce 12 beer. 2 plus 10 equals 12. So our production possibility frontier will go through this line. However, it is not a straight line like the others, right? So if you're king and you like tequila, and then you start to lose control of the economy because, I don't know, you messed up, you're facing a coup, and everybody in your country, because everybody in your country likes beer, because it is that much better than tequila, some of your economy starts to produce beer, right? If it's operating efficiently, Mexico will specialize in tequila and only produce tequila, and the United States will start to produce beer, right? So up until the United States uses all of its production capacity, which is 10, on beer, it will be a line that is 4 units above the United States curve until they use up all of its production capacity at 10. So you should have a parallel line here. Let's see if I can draw this one. Okay, these are supposed to be parallel, even if they don't look it. At that point, Mexico would have to start producing beer. His demand was sufficient for beer because it is that much better. Then you would have a line that's parallel with Mexico's curve, but shifted out. So you have a line like that, which is blurred because I messed up my label there. But it's just a straight line down here to the axis. Right? So in order to evaluate whether we'd be better off for trade, let's imagine a scenario where there is no free trade, right? And the United States is using, or both countries are using, half its production capacities to produce both beer and tequila. So in the United States, you'd be producing somewhere around here. You'd be producing 5 bottles of beer, 5 bottles of tequila, and in Mexico, you'd be producing 2 bottles of tequila and 1 bottle of beer. Right? So the global production would be around 6 bottles of beer, and we've got, let's see, 2 plus 5 is 7, so 7. Right? Okay, I'm going to label this point Autarky. A-U-T. So, to prove, as you see, this point is below the line that I've drawn for the production possibility frontier. Now let's prove that that's just not a figment of how I've drawn it. Okay, so let's go back to our global production possibility frontier. As we said, throughout this, until the United States uses up its capacity, Mexico will be producing 4 bottles of beer. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the level of production of beer constant, and we're going to see if we get we're richer in tequila. And that will prove that we are better off. Okay, so if the United States is producing all the beer in the world under free trade, we're going to look at the United States' production possibility frontier. If it's producing 6 bottles of beer, that means we know that it's producing 4 bottles of tequila, right? So here, even though my curves aren't perfect, we can show that we will be 1 bottle of tequila richer, because the United States is producing 4 bottles of tequila and Mexico is producing 4 bottles of tequila. Okay, let's label our curve free trade. Okay, so now let's evaluate our third scenario, which is free immigration, right? In order to do that, let's look at production in Mexico. So, the United States Mexico is producing under free trade 4 bottles of tequila, right? It is using all 10 of its labor units to do so. But it can look at the United States and see that it is also producing 4 bottles of tequila in the situation where the world is producing 6 bottles of beer, right? But the United States is only using 4 units of labor to produce that 4 bottles of tequila, right? So those people are going to see that if they came to the United States and used the United States technologies to produce tequila, then they would be better off and they would be more productive and they would have higher incomes. So everybody from Mexico is going to move to the United States. So what do you get? Because we have no diminishing marginal returns at production in our model, which won't hold in real life. But we end up with a situation where the world is vastly more productive than even under free trade, right? So if we have 20 people in the United States, they can produce 20 bottles of beer or 20 bottles of tequila or any point or any bundle on a line between those 2 points. So you end up with this. There you go. And to continue with our comparison by holding one constant and see how much richer we get in the other, if the United States is producing, if the United States is producing 6 bottles of beer, then that means we're also producing 14 bottles of tequila. And we are 6 bottles of tequila richer than we were under free trade, and we are 7 bottles of tequila richer than we were with Autarky. Thanks for listening.